Hey everyone and welcome to TwinOaksTV. If you're new here, hi, I'm Filippo and this is your Western Conference MLS preview. We already did an Eastern Conference preview, so you can check on the link down below. On that video, we also talked about the playoff structure and we talked about the important dates of the season. So please check that video, the Eastern, I'm putting on the description. In this video, we're going to talk just about the West and every single club in the most summarized way possible to make it entertaining, quick, and not waste your time. Alright, with all that said, we also are going to have many special guests throughout the video to talk about specific clubs. So please check out their links down in the description as well if you enjoy them, obviously. Also, don't forget to comment down below which is the best team in the Western Conference in your opinion and which is the worst team in the Western Conference in your opinion. Try to give your reasoning why. I'll probably reply with my opinion as well. We're going to be doing many live streams for the MLS, so don't miss out on the content. Hit the like button if you like these types of video. It helps more MLS fans, USMNT fans find us, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss our live streams and our several previews, predictions, and analysis. Alright, I want to thank you all for being here with us. Hit that like button and let's just roll the video. We're going to do it in alphabetical order. So let's just get started with the episode. Roll the intro. Alright. So for Austin FC, the very first team, we're going to talk about the expansion team. We brought TwinOaksTV to talk about them themselves. So go check their link on the description. We put it there. I won't be giving much of my opinion on this new team. Let them talk about it. Alright, Isco, there's nothing to talk about in regards to Austin FC last season as they are one of the expansion teams. So let's start with one thing right away. I want you to tell me one player we expect maybe a breakout or a very promising player that you've seen in preseason that's looking promising.
Definitely. I'm gonna have to give it to our number one draftee in the Super Draft, and it's gonna be Danny Pereira. He has been one of the players that has shown the most promise in this preseason, and he's gonna have a little bit of that Mike Tyson in him, where he's just gonna be a sponge that absorbs everything that Wolf and Arnaud can teach him. So if you want to pick one player that's gonna be like the rookie of the year for Austin FC, it's gonna be Danny Pereira.
What's his position at Austin right now? Where is he playing?
He's playing in the midfield, a little bit all over the place, mostly as an 8 that goes forward. He makes a lot of late runs into the box.
An attacking 8. We're going to go with this too. In your opinion, he's the promising one. We need to see how he's going to do. He's a rookie. Who is the star player in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, you could easily go and pick one of the DPs in either Pochettino or Dominguez, but for my money, it's going to be Alex Ring, the ringleader for NYCFC that we paid a 1.5 million GAM for. He's just got the experience, the leadership, the stability in that 6th position. And I mean, even Danny Pereira was like, hey, this is the guy that I look up to. This is the guy that I'm going to learn a lot from. So for my money, it's going to be a Ring.
And from what you're seeing the preseason, what do we expect in regards to playing style, formation, or it's still iffy? We don't know yet. What are you expecting, at least from what you saw?
Right. It's difficult to tell because we've only had one televised match or streamed, not televised. Based on what I've seen and what Wolf and the company have discussed, we want to play a very tight style of football, a lot of passing, a lot of building out of the back, fullbacks that are very offensive. And you can see that in Ben Sweat and Nick Lima. And to make a loose comparison, it can kind of mirror a little bit of what Greg Berhalter is trying to do with the U.S. men's national team, but at a club level. And of course, Wolf was Berhalter's assistant at the U.S.
Makes sense. So we could expect maybe a 4-3-3 formation, pressing and building off the back. We could see something like that. Even though Berhalter has tried a 3-defender formation, it seems like the 4-3-3 is his go-to formation at the moment, at least. So
yes.
Last but not least, it's the first season. What do you expect? Do you think it's realistic to make the playoffs? No playoffs? What are you expecting this year?
I think it's definitely realistic to make the playoffs. I mean, Nashville and Miami hit the playoffs in their first season. It's certainly the expectation we got to have. We don't want to be complacent and say, we're an expansion club, give them some leeway, don't expect success. I would say, hey, that should be the goal. Like, hold them accountable to making the playoffs and show that the fans will be on their tails if they don't. Make that culture part of the club. But we also can't have our expectations too high. It's very easy to build hype. I've certainly fallen forward as well. It's very easy to be biased. But at the end of the day, it's an expansion team, teams that have never put together. We just had our first loss in our first real preseason game against Houston, which, it wasn't a terrible game. But, yeah, playoffs acceptable. Try to make it, and that would be the bar for success, I think.
Thank you very much, Isco.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, now we're going to talk about the Colorado Rapids. Last season, the Colorado Rapids made it to the playoff as the 5th seed. But it was a little tricky. It was on a points per game basis as they only had 18 games played due to many of them being canceled for obvious reasons. Some will say they benefited, others will say they were even hurt by it and could have got a better seed. However, they were in a 3-game winning streak to close the season, and well, maybe they would have done even better. Then they went on to lose 3-0 to Minnesota at the playoffs' first round. Honestly, I do like this team, and I do think they could have even done better during the season with all that happened, so I actually am on the side of the people that think they were actually hurt a little bit by the lack of games. Cole Bassett, Kellen Acosta, Jack Price are all great options for the midfield. Many expect Jonathan Lewis to have a great season as well. They signed Michael Barrios from FC Dallas that if he can pick up his 2019 form, he can play a big role in this team as well. Now the main question is in regards to the defense. How will their defense perform? They do have Sam Vines on the left back and he's pretty reliable, but how will the rest of the defense perform? I do have high hopes on Trusty and maybe we can see him have a real breakout season this year. I'm also looking forward to seeing Cole Bassett continue to develop after his impressive 5 goals, 4 assists in only 12 games played last season. So my player to watch for the Colorado Rapids is Cole Bassett. That's the player I want to watch for. That's the one I have huge expectations. I love midfielders that can get stats, that can score goals, get assists, have it be effective. And I believe he's one of those. He's very young, and I expect him to have a, if you consider last year a breakout season, he'll have a second breakout season or make a second jump. With all that said, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and anything below that would be a failure. Now FC Dallas from Texas, and this is actually a very interesting team. Probably the best academy in the country, or one of the best academies. So let's talk about FC Dallas. Last season, FC Dallas finished in 6th place and made it to the playoffs. Out of the playoffs teams in the West, Dallas had the worst offense with just 28 goals in 22 matches. During the playoffs, they were able to defeat the MLS's back tournament champs Portland Timbers on penalty shootouts, heading to lose to the Seattle Sounders by 1-0. To me, the main problems in this team last season was mostly creativity from the midfield. Now at the same time, Franco Jaro is not doing that well given the opportunities. Andres Vircuerte has to do better as well. So yeah, there's a few things there that I wanted to talk about. They did have a creativity problem last season, along with Jada not converting a few opportunities he would get. But I think the creativity problem might be resolved this season. Now this season, 2 losses that likely will impact the team the most are Thiago Santos, that provided a solid protection to the back line and playing a big role as a defensive midfielder. He returned to the Brazilian League to play for Grêmio. As well as the loss of Brian Reynolds, which yes, it's not like he was vital for the team last season, but he played an important role and was probably going to make a huge jump this season again, but he ended up going to Roma abroad. With all that said, there's a couple young players to watch out in this team that I want to talk about in this video. Paxton Pomykal will be back, and if he's healthy, he will provide a lot of quality to midfield and could even help a lot in the creativity aspect with all his technique. He's a great player. Tanner Tessman's another player to watch out, and he can play a big role in the midfield as well, as I do see him getting more minutes this season. Now on the goal scoring issue, in case Jada does not perform, we can see maybe Jesus Ferreira or Ricardo Pepi step it up. So Jesus Ferreira and Ricardo Pepi are likely to play bigger roles this season, and if Jada doesn't step it up, these are the 2 guys that have to do something about it. The main player I want to watch out for is Paxton Pomykal. Yes, I think he has the highest ceiling of any player in this team, and they have a creativity issue, and I think he could resolve that in the midfield. I have high expectations for him as long as he's healthy, and based off the reports we've seen, he's been healthier than ever. So my final thoughts on it, if this team is healthy, I see them qualifying to the playoffs with not many issues, but maybe not as a top 4 team. They could get maybe a 5th or 6th seed, something around that spot. Now, do they have a shot in the MLS Cup? I find it very unlikely. I think they can make a deep run, maybe semifinals, maybe final on the playoffs, but I don't see them even making to the MLS Cup. Let's go to the next one. Alright, now the Houston Dynamo. And since you guys enjoyed Eli from this week in MLS, we brought him back again to talk about the Houston Dynamo. Alright, Eli, so you're here for several teams in this channel. Our MLS source. Let's say he's our MLS source. So going to that, Houston Dynamo. Last season, probably the worst team in the league. What went wrong, or is there anything that went wrong, or that's just where they're supposed to be?
It was where they were supposed to be. I'd say you look at their roster, and on paper, they did not look anywhere close to a playoff team, so I don't blame them for not making it. It's nothing to say about Tab Ramos, because Tab Ramos is a really good head coach, and it's just unfortunate that that's what had to happen. And sadly, this offseason, they didn't improve that much to make me even consider them a playoff team.
And is there any young player prospect, despite the team not being that good, that we should watch out for that you think could have an impressive season?
I mean, Memo Rodriguez kind of broke out last season, but I want to talk about Ethan Bartlow, who was the 6th overall pick in the MLS Super Draft. He, to me, is the Henry Kessler of this year's Super Draft. He's someone I think could come in immediately and start at the left center back position, so he could be pretty big for them this season.
We'll keep an eye on him. And who would you say is the star of this team or most valuable player?
Obviously, it's Darwin Quintero. Many people believe should have made the MLS Best 11 last season, but obviously the Dynamo sucked, so he wasn't going to make it. But everything that runs through their offense is through Darwin Quintero. So if he has a legendary season, who knows what could happen with the Dynamo. But even if he has a great season, they're probably still not going to be that great.
Perfect. And final thoughts on this team. What do you expect from them this season? They can't be worse than last season because they were the worst ones. But do you think they'll do better or actually same expectations?
You know what? I would even say they could get worse just because teams around them have gotten better. They'll be fighting with the Whitecaps for the worst team in the West. I almost said East. But it will be very rough to watch them this season. I can't say there are many positives. But who knows, maybe a guy like former Galaxy homegrown Ari Lassiter just breaks out all of a sudden and becomes an absolute god for them. I will say, though, I love the addition of Tim Parker. I just don't think that's any sort of game-changing move for them.
And Houston Dynamo fans, don't hate on Eli for this. He's just honest. He's not going to sugarcoat anything. He's just honest about it. Eli, thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
All right, now we've reached the LA Galaxy. And no. I'm not an LA Galaxy fan. I'm an Orlando City fan. But I just thought this David Beckham jersey that I have would be appropriate for this video. Now, LA Galaxy, I'm not going to talk about him. There's a few players I want to mention before I bring Eli to talk about him. He's our LA correspondent, so I'll bring Eli once again. I just want to watch out for 2 players in LA Galaxy this season. One of them is Efrain Alvarez. See how he performs, if he'll have a breakout season. And I want to see how Julian Araujo will do this season as well. Those are the 2 main players I want to watch out for. But let me bring Eli to talk a little more in details about LA Galaxy this season. All right, guys, it's Eli from This Week in MLS. That's what I mean. My channel, I get to do it. No, I'm joking. But Eli's going to talk very quickly about LA Galaxy. So let's start right away, right from it. What happened last season? What's going on?
So much happened last season, and it was a pile of crap all throughout the field. The Galaxy had no depth. They had no one to feed Chicharito. Chicharito was lazy, and he reminded me of Gio Dos Santos of a couple years ago. It was just not a pleasant thing to watch. The back line was as garbage as it has been over the past 5 seasons.
Yeah, so Chicharito was hungry last season. Is he going to get it back this year? Is he going to eat a lot this year, score some goals?
From what I'm hearing around the camp, he is as motivated as he's ever been in his entire career. He really wants to make it up to the Galaxy fans, and I think him emphasizing the fans is kind of nice to hear.
So now give me real quick a player you expect to break out this season.
Samuel Grandsir, who is the indirect but also the direct replacement for Pavone. He's a 24-year-old winger coming in from Monaco, and he possesses all the skills that a quality winger has. He's great with the ball at his feet. I think his end product might be lacking a tad, but at the same time, you know, he looks like he has a knack for goal scoring, and I'm excited to see what he could bring in. Also, Kevin Cabral, who the Galaxy will be announcing in the next couple of days for $5 million, also from France. He's a 21-year-old winger. So having those 2 guys starting out on the flank could be really, really good for their offense.
Who would you say is the most important player this season to have any success?
Obviously, it's got to be Chicharito. The biggest problem over the past couple years with the Galaxy has been scoring goals and also defending, but scoring goals outside of Zlatan. And now that obviously Zlatan's not there, Chicharito was supposed to fill in those shoes. Obviously, he was never going to score the amount of goals Zlatan did, but at least score like 14 to 18 goals. That's what we're paying you to do. And like I said, he seems very motivated. The Galaxy are going to be coming in with a brand new style. Daniel Steres, who was on my show last week, briefly mentioned that they're going to be playing a style that will be very pleasing for the fans, which is very intriguing to me. So we'll see what Greg Vanney is putting into place there.
Last but not least, I want you to quickly say, what do you expect from Galaxy this season? Where do you think they're going to finish? If it'll be a better season, just give us your honest opinion.
I don't think it could get worse than last year. And this team definitely has better depth. Their back line is looking a lot better. Will they make the playoffs? I don't really think so, but I think they could be fighting for it. And like, they're at a place where it wouldn't surprise me if they did make it, but I think the odds are more against them doing that.
And Eli, this is a bonus section to all the viewers here. 30 seconds. Efrain Alvarez.
Okay. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, man. But I eat Taco Bell maybe once or twice a week. I have Popeyes maybe twice a week, and I have a better diet than Efra Alvarez. All right, see you guys.
All right, see, look, no one called him fat. All right, guys, Eli, thank you very much. Now we've reached LAFC, and for LAFC, we brought Pete from 11 Yanks. You're all probably very familiar with him. Great channel, fantastic channel, great analysis. He'll be talking about LAFC. So I put his link on the description as well. If you don't know him, please go check it out. So let's bring on Pete. All right, Pete. So what happened last season with LAFC? Why did they not translate the form from the CONCACAF Champions League to the MLS playoffs?
So the CONCACAF Champions Leagues, most of the good games were at the beginning of the season before COVID. Some teams handled the whole MLS's back tournament and then the subsequent, ups and downs of the season better than others. And LAFC were just one of those teams that didn't handle it well. Carlos Vela getting injured probably didn't help, but the team just never felt like they really got going. And I think that'll be disappointing to Bob Bradley and the entire coaching staff because they expect better. And hopefully this season we're going to see that from LA.
Second thing I wanted to know from you is there a young promising player you expect to break out? Is there any young prospect you want us to watch out for?
Yeah, so 3 young guys that they signed last season but didn't play that much. Christian Torres, Eric Duenas, and Antonio Leone. Leone is still very young for a center back, 17 years old, but super high ceiling. I think Torres could come in and contribute right away. He's also 17 years old. All of these 3 guys are dual nationals. So it'll be interesting. They've both been in a Mexican under-17 camp, but we need to get them into the U.S. youth system ASAP. But keep an eye on all 3 of them for LAFC this season.
And then the star player, which I think everyone knows the answer to. And what do you expect from that star player?
Yeah, Vela has to, he's come back from injury now. There's discussions. I've heard talks about him going back to the Mexican national team. I don't think it's going to happen. He needs to show this season that he is their top guy still. Diego Rossi wants a move. And he's going to have to continue to show good form this season, especially in the first half of the season if he wants to move in the summer. So Vela and Rossi are the guys to watch for me.
All right, and LAFC has the most expensive roster in the MLS right now. What are your expectations for the season? Is winning the MLS Cup reasonable?
Yeah, they should be challenging for it at least. Because in a playoff system, one-off games or you need a certain amount of luck, but they should be in the conversation. They should be challenging for it. They've already won Supporters Shield, so that's the next step for Bob Bradley is to win MLS Cup.
Thank you very much, Pete.
Thanks, Filippo.
All right, so let's bring the Minnesota United now, and that will be me talking about them. Last season, Minnesota United qualified to the playoffs at the 4th place in the Western Conference. During the playoffs, 2 players that stood out quite a bit, and that was Reynoso and Molino. The 2020 was the best season in the franchise's history. Reynoso had 4 assists and 1 goal in 2 matches, the last 2 matches at least, and Molino had 2 goals, all that in the last 2 matches, where Minnesota would go on to a disappointing loss to Seattle Sounders in the conference finals. The reason I say it was disappointing was they had a 2-0 lead all the way up to the 75th minute, and they allowed the Sounders to come back and make it to the MLS Cup final. The biggest loss here is Kevin Molino. The team did lose him in this offseason, and I don't think it's good at all. Reynoso and Molino had great chemistry. We saw that in the playoffs, so this is a major blow for Minnesota United. Now, there are some interesting additions as well. Will Trapp arrives for the midfield, but he might not start for this team, but does add at least depth to the midfield. The signing of Ramon Abilia, the center forward from Boca Juniors, is also an interesting one as well. We'll see how these 2 signings play out. I'm very interested into seeing 2 specific players this season. One being Patrick Weah, the next homegrown and cousin of Tim Weah, which will likely have an interview with him in the channel very soon. I'm very interested what he will offer at the wing position for this team, especially after they lost one of their main wingers. However, the main one to keep an eye on is Hassani Dotson. I think he was one of the very few players that did okay during the Olympic qualifiers. He had a goal last season in 15 games, but he showed in the qualifiers that he can provide goals from the midfield. So let's keep an eye on that. I really want to see how Hassani Dotson, I believe his contract expires this season, so expect big things from him. Maybe a big breakout season with him in Minnesota United. I did like what I saw from him in the Olympic qualifiers, even though the team was a disaster. He was one of the bright sides. So let's see how he performs with Minnesota United. He'll be the player I'll be keeping an eye out for. Now, with all that said, I think Minnesota United can most certainly make the playoffs this season. The team actually looks like they might be even better than last season despite losing Molino. Adrian Heath has a good squad in hands, and despite not being a fan of him because of his Orlando days, I think he's doing a pretty good job there. So I say this is a playoffs team. No, they won't. I don't even think they can make as far as last season to the conference finals. But if they don't make the playoffs, I would consider this a major disappointment this season. Okay, and if you guys haven't hit the like button yet in this video, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel. It takes 1 second and it's free. All right, and don't forget to comment down below the best and the worst team in each conference. Actually, for this video, the Western Conference, and then check our Eastern Conference video. The link's on the description. Now let's go to the Portland Timbers. The MLS is back champs, qualified in 3rd place for the playoffs last season, and had one of the best offenses in the league with 46 goals in 23 matches. They went on to the playoffs to lose to Dallas, the FC Dallas, in the first round of the penalty shootouts in a game, well, that they should have won, but Ricardo Pepi came off the bench for Dallas and tied the game at the 93rd minute. And well, then they lost in the playoffs, as I previously said. Now, for this season, they really did not lose any of the big names. Maybe the loss of Marco Farfan could be counted as a loss, but to me that won't have major impact, as they have signed, which in my opinion is an upgrade, Claudio Bravo from Banfield to play the left back position as well. The team honestly is well rounded for the MLS, and most players are very experienced. Even the young guys like Ebobizi and Eric Williamson are fairly experienced to be considered young guys. One thing could be an issue this season is a decline of maybe Diego Chara. I mean, he's 35 years old, and Diego Valeri, he's 34, turning 35 very soon. Age could be a problem. I don't think if having some important players with that age will hurt them throughout the season, but we'll see how that goes. The thing is, there's a tight calendar, so players at age 35 might not be able to play 2 games a week. They could get injuries. We'll see how these players go. Maybe they'll surprise me and not decline. With all that said, Eric Williamson is the most important player in the midfield in my personal opinion this season. I know many might disagree with that, but he's the one I'll be keeping an eye on, and him performing will be key for the Portland Timbers. Now, with all that said, I fully expect them to make the playoffs and finish in the top 4. Now, in regards to the MLS Cup, I don't expect them to win the MLS Cup, but I think they can at least make it to the conference finals. This is a top 4 team of the West, in my opinion. All right, now let's talk about Real Salt Lake, RSL. Let's go to them. Last season, RSL was the 2nd to last team in the West, and they were the worst offense with 25 goals in 22 games only. They lost Corey Bird, and if you can count that as a loss to the forward that scored 2 goals in 18 matches last season, well, I don't think that's a loss to me. They lost Rossi as well, and that's also not really a loss for me as well. They are hoping their new signings such as Rubio Ruben and Anderson Julio can solve their offensive issues, but honestly, I don't see anything improving there. Maybe we can see Pablo Ruiz make a jump this season and have an impact in the midfield, maybe, but probably not, to be honest. Now, on the side note, they did sign Bobby Wood, and that will be a major upgrade for that offense, but he's not expected to arrive till July, as he does wait for his wife to give birth in Germany, so he won't be back anytime soon, and he will come in halfway through the season. Probably around August we'll see him, and that's where we could see RSL improve their offense throughout the season if he's in form. Obviously, he's an upgrade from the teams, but we don't know how Bobby Wood will perform in the MLS this season. Now, the defense does look solid. Well, Aaron Herrera is fine, and he'll be playing the right back position or left back position. We'll see how that goes. Justin Glad also. So for the defensive end, it's totally fine. Now, a player to watch out for to me is David Ochoa. I'm hoping he can play. I'm hoping he will start. I don't know if he will start for RSL. I just hope he will. If he can do what he did in the Olympic qualifiers and remain consistent, I'll be very happy. We do need depth on that position, the goalkeeper position. I'll be very happy he can play with his feet, show that he can be a leader. I hope to see the same from him during the season if he starts, but that's the player I want to watch out for. If he doesn't start for RSL, I'll likely not be tuning into many of their games. I think there's still a bottom 2 team in the conference. There's really not much Freddy Juarez can do with this roster, honestly. I think it's going to be similar to last season, but maybe with some of the young guys like David Ochoa, they can start to spark a light and eventually become good. This season's not looking good for RSL. Sorry, RSL fans, just being honest here. Okay, now the San Jose Earthquake. Last season, San Jose made it to the playoffs as the 8th seed, or aka the last seed of the playoffs in the West. Now, this team could score goals, but the defense was just kind of bad, allowing 51 goals in 23 matches, and they were the worst defense in the league. We saw that right away in the first playoff match when they tied Sporting 3-3 and then went on to lose on penalty shootouts. So the 3-3, all I'm saying is that it just shows they can score goals. They scored on Sporting, but they also allowed 3. So the defense was just terrible. But the team is not bad. We have JT Marcinkowski on goal. Jackson Yo's there. Judson, the Brazilian, can also play a key role in the midfield, protecting the back line, even though last season obviously didn't do the best job. Espinosa is one of the most creative players in the league, but I think the key to them having a good season is the new signing, Eric Remedi, performing well. And Chris Wondolowski, the captain, still being able to perform at age 38 last season. He only scored 5 goals in 19 games. If he can continue to perform fairly well or very well and bring his experience to the table, then maybe they can have some success there. The player to watch out for is Cade Cowell, the young, very promising young forward. To me, he will make a big jump this season. Can he become a regular starter? Most certainly won't early in the season. I don't think he will, but let's see how Kid Kyle does. He could become a starter throughout the season. Now, the defense of San Jose continues to look bad, and don't expect good things with them unless they're organized. That's the thing. Talent-wise, it's not the best defense, and you're probably going to see them allow a lot of goals. I do expect this team to make the playoffs, make a fight for it to the very minimum, though. I do think if they don't qualify to playoffs, it will be a disappointment. However, I don't see them being much better than a 7 seed, a 6 seed. And remember, the playoffs this season, only 7 teams qualify. So they're going to fight for that 7 seed. If they fail to do so, I think it is a disappointment. But I won't be surprised if they miss the playoffs barely as an 8 to 9 seed. Now the Seattle Sounders from the land of Bill Gates. Last season, the Sounders qualified to the playoff as the 2nd seed on the West, only behind, well, the next team that we're going to cover in this video, Sporting. Now, during the playoffs, the Sounders will Sounders. What does that mean? They always come up big in the playoffs. At least they have made it to the MLS Cup 4 times in the last 5 editions. During the playoffs, the Sounders knocked out in-form LAFC. The form showed in the CONCACAF Champions League. They also defeated FC Dallas and went on to the conference final to defeat Minnesota United in an impressive comeback in the last 15 minutes. They also made it to the MLS Cup final, obviously, and they lost to Columbus Crew 3-0. They did have a solid defense throughout the regular season and a very efficient offense. Now, the offense this season might not be as efficient as they do have issues on the wingers position, and we're going to talk about that right now. So for this season, the Sounders did lose Jones, that played an important role at the winger position, along with Jordan Morris. He went on a Swansea loan, ended up injured. He'll likely be back with the Sounders when the loan expires, but he'll probably won't play the season at all after this ACL syndrome. With all that said, they must have signed some guys to answer to all these losses, haven't they? Well, they didn't. They didn't sign any significant replacement, honestly, and that is a big problem. So the Sounders do have major problems in the winger position, and that's why I think we'll see a different formation from them this season. I think we're likely going to see a 4-4-2 from the Sounders this season to resolve that winger position issue, or we're going to see a 3-5-2, something that doesn't require you having wingers, because they just don't have wingers right now. Now, regardless, I still think this is a solid playoff team and maybe an MLS Cup contender. Rui Diaz is still one of the best forwards in the league, if not the best. Lodeiro is one of the best players in the league as well. João Paulo is very efficient. Roldan is still a great player right there in the midfield, and the defense is still looking rock solid. But in my honest opinion, I think they're going to make the playoffs around the 5th or 6th seed this season. I think they're going to be a little lower than they normally are. And along with that, they're going to go to the playoffs. And in the playoffs, anything can happen. But I don't expect the Sounders to make it to the MLS Cup. At least not this season, unless they had signings, unless they got better. They haven't, so I don't think they're going to win the MLS Cup. But they'll most certainly make the playoffs with some ease. All right, now Sporting. And Sporting were the #1 seed in the West last season. They finished in 1st place in the standings. But in my personal opinion, they overachieved a little bit in regards to that. I think they should have been a little lower in the standings, even though they're most certainly a playoff team and a very good one. Now, during the playoffs for the first round, they played the 8th seed San Jose Earthquakes, advancing after a 3-3 tie on the penalty shootouts to the semifinals. And then on the semifinals, they would go on to lose 3-0 to Minnesota United on a big performance by Reynoso. Alright, now for this season, their big signing was Azimat Mirin, and he can have an impact right away as he's a quality MLS center back in my personal opinion. I also want to see Remy Walter do in the midfield, as he will add depth there as well. Now, I don't see them having major losses unless you consider the loss of Gerso a loss. I don't personally. Now, we do expect more from the most valuable player in the team, Alan Pulido, and we do know he can do better if he's healthy and focused. Gabi Kinda is still there, and that is a big plus as well. Now, a player to watch out for me, in my personal opinion, is Gianluca Busio. He's the player I'm excited for. He's the player I want to watch out, and they did give him the number 10 for the season. Last season, he played 16 matches during the regular season, had 3 assists and 1 goal, and I expect him to have a full breakout this season. Adding to that, I also expect it to be his last MLS season if he does break out, and that would make him join our USMNT Abroad series. He would go abroad and we cover him on a weekly basis. So hopefully Gianluca Busio can make that jump this season. Now, I expect this team to be a top 3 in the West again, to be honest, but not the 1st seed. I expect them to do even better than last season, as they will have Alan Pulido back and hopefully he will perform. We know what he can do. After all, he did score 5 goals last season in only 9 matches played, so expect big things from him, an amazing offense if he can play. Now, in the playoffs, what do I expect from them? I think this is a team that could make it to the MLS Cup. They can make it if the whole team is healthy and in form. This is a top quality team, along with, we'll see how Gianluca Busio and Alan Pulido will perform. Now let's go to the very last team of this video, the Vancouver Whitecaps. And for this one, I brought Josh from JJDTV. If many of you don't know, he did work or was going to work for their youth academy, so he knows this team very well. So let's hear from him what to expect from the Whitecaps this season. And guys, I put his link on the description, so don't forget to subscribe to Josh from JJDTV. All right, guys. So as I previously said, Josh has worked on the Vancouver Youth Academy. He knows the team fairly well. He is Canadian too, but he's a very nice Canadian.
Very nice,
Josh, what the heck happened to this team last season?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very underwhelming season. They started off absolutely dreadful, and they were able to kind of climb back. It looked at one point they might be able to sneak in that very last little spot for the playoffs, but they ended up being 3 points short. Had a lot of wins. I mean, 9 wins is respectable, but they had too many losses. They lost 14, 0 draws, and it wasn't quite enough. And they're definitely gonna be looking to bounce back this season and have some type of a playoff run.
So is there any player we should be watching out for, maybe young or not even young? It could be a 25-year-old. Any player we should watch out for in this team that you think is interesting?
I think there's a couple. I think from Sporting, they picked up a right back in Bruno Gaspar. I think that he's a talented right back, and I think the way that he's going to be coming from a Sporting team, he went on loan a couple times. I think he might have a chance to fit in here at the MLS. And I know the right back position isn't the most glamorous, but it's one that hopefully he'll be able to lock down, play well, and adds a little bit of versatility because he's a very attacking fullback, as well as the young Brazilian who we were talking about, and
Caio Alexandre from Botafogo.
had asked for the proper pronunciation because, I mean, as you guys know, Filippo is Brazilian, but I think he's going to add a little bit of something, a box-to-box midfielder. I mean, he didn't play for a very strong squad there who got relegated, so hopefully he'll be able to come here with a new little lease on life and really shape up that midfield because I think that was a big issue for Vancouver last season.
And along with that, who would you say is the most valuable player of this team, the most important player for them to have a successful season?
I think for sure it has to be Lucas Cavallini, man. I think that he came in and had such big goals about him, and he was supposed to be such a fantastic player to come in and score a bunch of goals. He had 6 goals in 18 appearances. Wasn't good enough, as some Canadians might know. He's got a fantastic record for scoring for Canada. He's got 14 goals in 19 games. He did very well in the Mexican League, and he was supposed to really just take off this year. So if this Vancouver squad wants to have any type of making the playoffs and go deep in it, he's got to score. He's got to be that number 9 that we know he can be, and I think after kind of adjusting for his first season, which was a very weird season, he should be able to come out here and hopefully be in the double digits as well.
And last but not least, what is your expectation with them, as realistic as you can be?
I don't think this is a team that, like I said when I talked about Toronto, that is going to be in the top 3. I think this is a team, if anything, that should just try to make the playoffs. I think that making the playoffs in any way, shape, or form would be a positive thing for this Vancouver squad, and then they'll just have to see what they can do in playoffs. It's magical, like we mentioned, how Nashville knocked out Toronto. Vancouver could potentially try to do something like that, but yeah, just making the playoffs should be the goal for this team.
All right, I want to thank you all very much for watching here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you hit that like button. It really helps the channel, so hit that like button before you leave. You subscribe, then hit the notification bell if you made it this far. I want to thank you all very much for watching, guys. Don't forget to comment down below the best team in the West and the worst team in the West in your opinion. I want to thank you all very much for watching. Don't forget the live streams we have coming up for the MLS, and have a great day.